Hi folks, I'm Ignatiy Vishnevetsky.
I'm Alex Dowd.
This week we're back again at Farmhouse Tavern, just around the corner from the AV Club office.
Welcome to Film Club.
ChiRaq. It's Spike Lee's modern day take on Lysistrata, set in our very own city on the make. I'd be hard pressed to name like one element in this movie that really works. You know, it's about an hour too long. Parts of it are just deadly unfunny. But at the same time, I find it hard not to, you know, at least get a little bit into it or get just a little bit energized by it, because I think it has kind of a real anger behind it that is very rare in American movies.
Well, I think that's Spike Lee for you, you know? I think that he's never more interesting as a filmmaker than when he's enraged and when he's impassioned about something. And this is a movie with a lot of ideas and a lot of perspective. It's about gang violence in Chicago, largely. And it's a film where the characters are constantly throwing ideas at each other and talking about, you know, where does this violence come from? What kind of society creates this environment? If it's a failure, it's an admirable one, because it is about a lot of things, and it has a lot of movie
and
in it.
It's trying to do a lot of things.
Right.
You know, you've got a direct-to-camera narrator played by Samuel L. Jackson. You've got sequences that are very, very silly. You know, there's two different extended, like, power fantasy sex game sequences.
The plot of the film is basically the women in Chicago decide that what they need to do to stop the violence is to basically go on a sex strike,
which spreads
the whole world.
The whole world, yeah.
And that just leads to a lot of really just corny, bad blue balls humor, you know, and that just sort of hijacks the movie at a certain point.
It swings so wildly between really, really irreverent bawdy comedy and just these very, very sincere pleas.
I feel like there's a lot of whiplash with that.
I mean, it doesn't all gel together. It's almost too much of a cartoon to really, for those parts of it that are serious, to really come across as completely credible. And at the same time, it's almost too sentimental to really work as a satire. Now, the same day you and I saw this, we went to see another movie, which is one that our viewers are not going to be able to see for a little bit, and that's The Revenant, Alejandro González Iñárritu's follow-up to Birdman, which is based on a real story, true story, but it is actually, I think the credits say it's adapted in part from a novel that is based on this true story of Hugh Glass, this fur trapper in the early part of the 19th century who was essentially left for dead by his comrades and then crawled his way back.
Hundreds of miles, I think. Yeah, a very long distance.
To, in this version, exact bloody revenge.
Yes. That deviates a little bit from, I want to say the true story, but I'm guessing that a lot of what we know about Hugh Glass has probably been distorted over the years. Which is fine, you know, I mean, this is definitely a sort of a mythic film about this man. Although I feel like it's caught a little bit between being sort of celebrating that myth of who he was, this very rugged, unstoppable force, and seeing him as just a man in really bad circumstances. And this is a movie with several really, really spectacular sequences. It really is a series of amazing moments, like maybe a handful of them. There's an opening action scene that's Private Ryan of Frontier Times, basically. The film is shot by Emmanuel Lubezki, and it is captured in one of his sort of famous, long, elaborate, showy single
Steadicam shots.
Yeah, Steadicam shots, exactly. And there's a later sequence, maybe a half an hour later, where DiCaprio's character, where Hugh Glass is mauled by a bear, and that too is captured in this really long take. And these are spectacular scenes.
It's fun to talk about this movie in technical terms because there are really effective sort of self-contained sequences, and there's a really gruesome climax to this movie as well, because it's a very gory, very gruesome movie. But then when you take it as a whole, I'm
not entirely sure it works as a whole. And I think my main issue with it is that it seems caught between wanting to be this kind of macho, you know, like frontier era sort of revenge thriller, and being this sort of whispery Terrence Malick meditation on man and nature.
What it's really kind of moving between is this animism and just total nihilism. Because on the one hand, you do have this almost mystical view of nature, this melting snow, combined with a very, very bleak view of this kind of foundational era in American history.
Another issue that I have with it is that I feel like the core of this film should be Glass's journey and his attempt after he's mauled to get back to sort of exact his revenge and get across this vast expanse of land. Yeah. But the movie keeps cutting around and we keep going to these other characters. And on the one hand, I wouldn't necessarily want to lose Hardy because he really is pretty wonderful in this film, very eccentric. But on the other hand, I feel like at a certain point, this needs to be about us feeling every moment that DiCaprio's character is going through out there in the wild, feeling his loneliness, feeling his desperation, feeling his pain.
But at the same time, do you feel, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because this also sounds like a movie that I'd want to see, but don't you feel like that could become monotonous if we stayed with Glass? I mean, he doesn't even have anybody to talk to for most of the film.
Yes, I do actually, and I think Iñárritu might be the wrong filmmaker to do that because conversely, I feel like the moments that work in this film are the ones where he's, I'll use this expression again, swinging for the rafters. The moments when we're sort of looking at these enormous panoramas of battle and conflict. And he's less assured, I think, in these quiet moments, and which should really be the meat of the film.
Well, because the quiet moments feel like imitations of other people's work. I mean, there's a lot of Herzog here.
Absolutely.
I mean, you say Malick, but what I see is a lot of Herzog, especially in this in the commitment of DiCaprio's performance, which is very physically committed. But this character doesn't really have that much psychology to him, despite all these dream sequences. He is sort of this Kinski-like figure who just comes back for revenge because that's what he does.
And that's what I mean by the film sort of being caught between myth and man, because I think that it does want to see him as a flesh and blood person and how he's struggling through this environment.
Right, he's got a son, and the son is killed. I mean, there's loss and regret, constant dreams about the violence somewhere in his past.
Right, but he doesn't have a lot of psychology. We don't know much about him as a character, and I don't feel like, and this isn't necessarily DiCaprio's fault, but it's not like we get inside his head much, as much as those dream sequences try to.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's man versus nature, but I feel like what's really compelling here is nature, or the idea of just seeing human beings as these like predator scavenger animals that just constantly fight with each other. Like that is compelling.